I said, from once you have my skin color, you are an African. But most people in the Caribbean, if you tell a Jamaican, you are an African. No, me not African, I'm a Jamaican. No, you were taken from Africa. You've been a Barbados. No, I'm not I'm a Bajan. Listen, you are an African. We were all taken and scattered all across the earth. Time for you to come home, man. Time for you to come Africa.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm back with yet another video. Did you know that some people are actually shocked when they find out that Jamaica is not in Africa? In this video, you will find out why there is such a big connection between the Jamaica and Africa. Watch these videos that I have compiled until the end. Then I will be back with some very interesting facts.
So, I think it's safe to say that there are a few Africans growing up who genuinely thought that Jamaica was in Africa. And I am guilty. I am one of those people who genuinely thought Jamaica was an African country. And I remember growing up, my dad used to play Bob Marley so much. And on top of that, the vinyl, we used to call it LPs, the cover was clearly a black African man. So it didn't make sense that if anyone had to tell me, no, this man is not in Africa or from Africa, you know, he's obviously African, but that Jamaica's not in Africa, made no sense. But I know better now, guys. I'm grown up, but I do know something. So there's this other African country, and they do not consider themselves black. I don't even know if they think they're African. It's a blue flag, and no, it's not Botswana, but maybe if we can like swap them with the Caribbean. Just a thought, use it, don't use it.
Jamaican patois literally tells us where our ancestors are from. I saw a post online the other day that said Jamaicans are not from Nigeria, but the language literally tells us another story.
One thing for sure, Jamaica is in Africa. I don't care what the geographers say, because do you know how much that scarred me when I was 10? Do you understand? I'm sorry.
Nope. No. I refuse. What do you mean Jamaica is not in Africa? What do you mean Jamaica is not in Africa? No. No. I refuse to believe it. No. I am not accepting that shame. Angek. No. How? No.
Why am I just finding this out? Why? And I was seriously ready to argue with my friends. My friend was telling me and I was like, bro, you're lying. I was laughing at her. Why? Anytime I tell people, oh, I'm from Nigeria, they're like, oh, I have a friend from Jamaica. It's not even in Africa. Why didn't I know that? Why didn't you go tell me that?
I used to think that Jamaica was part of Africa. I'm a Nigerian myself, and I don't know why. I always just thought that Jamaica was somewhere in Africa. I don't know why.
Jamaica not being in Africa doesn't make sense to me. It's like 77 plus 33 is not 100. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
This whole time I thought Jamaica was part of Africa. Last year I went to a Jamaican restaurant to go buy some Jamaican food. And the lady had a Jamaican accent and we got to talking. And then I was like, are you from Africa? She goes, no. And I was like, this bitch really thinks I'm dumb. Doesn't she know I can hear her accent? And in my mind, like when I left there, in my mind the whole time I was just laughing to myself, like this girl really doesn't want to say she's African. Meanwhile, I can hear her accent. She's obviously African. So I tell my brother the story. And then my brother tells me that, yo, Jamaica is not part of Africa.
Jamaica was in Africa.
Jamaica was a volcano. Jamaica is not in Africa. I don't really know what to tell you guys. I think that's just geography.
South Africans are okay with things not making sense. For example, Jamaica's not in Africa, Haiti's not in Africa, Brazil's not in Africa, but I've come across some South Africans that in theory know this, but in reality, like, they don't compute it or process it, right? For example, I'll tell people about my Jamaican friends. I'll be like, oh my gosh, like, Jamaicans have housed me and made me feel more welcome and helped my transition a lot more than, you know, some African people. And they'll be like, why are you separating Jamaicans from Africans? Is Jamaica not in Africa? I'm like, bro, we were in the same geography class. You know that Jamaica is not in Africa. And then people would have to dig in their knowledge and be like, oh my gosh, in theory, yes, I do know that it's not in Africa, but the way that Jamaican culture, Haitian culture, even some people think that Brazil, not as often Brazil comes up, but some people do think that Brazil is in Africa. Like, they would know it in theory that it's not in Africa, but then practically and realistically, like, their brains just see these cultures, the spirituality within these cultures, the expression, the color, the ceremoniousness, the way that Africans feel loved when they're in these countries, and they'll be like, yeah, this must be an African person, even though the theory we learned in class is cognitively dissonant to that, or it is incongruent to the information that their brain feeds them. And I find that so fascinating. And I think then when you approach the African continent or South Africa, knowing that things make sense not making sense, knowing that people can maneuver the countries in the world in their heads to make sense of identity in the world, I think it lets you approach South African ignorance differently and South African history and political context differently, because there is a context as to why people think that Jamaica is in Africa. And it's not everyone, it's some people, it's probably a minority before people come at me. But yeah, I hope I'm making sense.
Let me lighten the mood real quick. So it's a lot of people that grew up in Africa, right, that really thought Jamaica was in Africa. And it's all right. I'm gonna make a dream come true. Look. Jamaica is really in Africa. You have Jamaica right here. You see the island of Jamaica, and this is the continent of Africa. Jamaica is in Africa. Now listen to nobody. We are one. Love. Big up to the people.
Jamaica's not in Africa, is it?
Sorry?
Jamaica's not. No, it's not. Tell me.
What?
Start again.
No, we're not going to start again. We're going to keep this in.
No, I need to clarify.
What?
It's around the area, though.
What?
I'm
listening.
You're trying to get me in trouble.
No, I'm not going.
Jamaica.
Yeah.
Is basically one of the Canary Islands? No, not Canaries, is it? The Grand Canaries?
What?
No, Jamaica.
You don't know where Jamaica is?
Cranberry Islands?
What? Cranberry? The Caribbean? Cranberry? Cranberry Islands, guys!
Oh, the Caribbean.
Yes.
Caribbean. And then Africa is further.
Is in Africa.
Which is continent. Obviously different area, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what continent is Jamaica in then?
I don't know what it'd fall under.
It would have originally been attached to a continent, if you want to be smart.
Cranberry Island. Good. It's North America.
See? Who would have known that Jamaica's actually American? You're American.
All right, cool.
You're American.
Right,
no, don't gloss over that one. Go back and address that.
All right.
You're American.
All right, it's a North American, yeah.
Can you name me 3 African languages?
Absolutely not. African.
Yeah.
Nigerian. Jamaican.
That was spot on. I think you was the only one that was correct.
Welcome back, guys. I must admit that I'm one of the people who used to believe that Jamaica is geographically in Africa. There's just this strong feeling and connection because, for example, here in Kenya, there's so much about Jamaica, especially the music. I'm one of the biggest fans of the reggae music, and even from listening to the songs, you feel like this is an African country. And there's just some form of connection that you can't explain. First of all, you've heard people from those videos talking about that same connection. And that connection is not imaginary. There is a lot of history why Jamaica feels so familiar to so many Africans. I did some research and found out that between the 1600s and the 1800s, over 600,000 enslaved Africans were transported to Jamaica. And Jamaica had one of the harshest plantation systems in the Caribbean. So the mortality rate there was very high, and the British, instead of relying on people being born there, they started bringing more people from the West and Central Africa. And so culturally, Jamaica retained a very strong African foundation. Most of the people brought there came from areas that are now Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and parts of the Central Africa like Congo and Angola. Today, more than 90% of Jamaica's population is of the African descent. So when an African person says Jamaica feels familiar, genetically speaking, that's not far-fetched. Now let's talk about the language. The Jamaican patois is not just broken English. It is a Creole language that is shaped by the English vocabulary and also the West African grammar structures. For example, when a Jamaican says unu, which means you all, that traces back to the Igbo, a language in Nigeria. When they say nyam, meaning eat, that comes from the Akan in Ghana. Even dupi, meaning ghosts or spirit, is a word of an African origin. Another interesting thing that I found out is that the Anansi spider stories that every Jamaican child grows listening to comes from the Akan folklore in Ghana. So when someone from West Africa hears the Jamaican speech and feels that it's familiar, it's because they are literally hearing the echoes of their ancestral language. Now, let's talk about resistance. There is a story of the Jamaican Maroons. These were enslaved Africans who escaped plantations and formed independent communities in the mountains. They fought the British for decades, and actually they signed treaties in the 1700s that granted them the autonomy. One of their most leaders was Queen Nanny of the Maroons. She is believed to be of the Akan heritage, and she is now a Jamaican hero. The Maroons preserved the African military strategies, including things like spiritual practices like Obeah, which has its roots in the West African spiritual system. And they also maintained the traditional drumming patterns. So when people talk about a spiritual code that was never cut, part of that survival comes from the communities that refused to let their African identity die. And we cannot talk about this connection without mentioning Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was Jamaican, but became one of the most influential Pan-African leaders in history. His ideas about black pride and African determination influenced leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, who is from Ghana. Garvey told people to look to Africa for an African king. Then in 1930, Haile Selassie was crowned the Emperor of Ethiopia, and that moment sparked the Rastafari movement in Jamaica. Ethiopia became a symbol of African sovereignty because it resisted colonization longer than almost any other African nation. And here is something real. The Ethiopian government granted land in Shashamane to members of the African diaspora who wanted to return. And by the way, to this day, there is a small Rastafarian community in Ethiopia. So when Jamaicans talk about Africa as being their motherland, there is a history behind it. Now let's talk about music. As I said, I'm a big fan of reggae, and I believe that music might be the strongest bridge. The African drumming tradition survived in Jamaica through practices like kumina and the nyabingi drumming. The reggae's heavy bassline and rhythm reflects the African musical structure where the rhythm carries a message. Then what happened? In the 1970s and 80s, reggae became the voice of resistance across Africa. Now, if we fast forward to today, if you listen to the Afrobeats, you can hear how they have been influenced by the dancehall. That is why we have seen artists like Burna Boy and Wizkid collaborating with the Jamaican artists. So, when Africans feel shocked that Jamaica is not physically in Africa, I don't think that shock comes from ignorance. I think it comes from emotional geography. Because if you grow up hearing reggae, hearing references to Ethiopia, hearing rhythms that feel familiar, hearing a language that sounds like your dialect, your brain maps that place as close. The slavery tried to erase the identity, but language, rhythm, and spiritual framework survived. So no, Jamaica is not geographically in Africa, but culturally, historically, and even ancestrally, there is a strong connection. If you are from Africa, did you grow up thinking that Jamaica is in Africa? Do you feel that connection? And for Jamaican people, do you feel that pull towards Africa? Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you all for watching my videos. Subscribe for more. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I'll see you in the next one.